Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and today is Wednesday, November the 14th, 2018. And we're back again with BZ Rieger and Lisa Flamino Rush. And we're going to talk about, BZ, you said three tip-offs that you're holding it as an intellectual exercise. This one's kind of a close one to my heart because I sometimes am overly, I think, maybe even concerned that I might hold things as an intellectual exercise, partly because of some programming and conditioning that I've received earlier on in my life. So I'm keenly listening to this one. Give us a tip, BZ. What's a tip off that I might be holding this as an intellectual exercise?
Well, I'll start by saying before we hit the camera, you said, "What's it?"
Yes, I did say that.
And so you're holding it as an intellectual exercise. So it is whatever you're focusing on in that moment. It is what's the deflating you, annoying you, woe is meing you at the moment. And so a tip off is when the it is something that you believe in, you say that you believe in, and you say on that it that yeah, it makes sense, and you say on that it that you can see how these dots are connecting, and then a prediction or a forecast or maybe a scripting or a story of the way, like a flow chart of how things would unfold or how you perceived things would unfold, doesn't go the way you perceive them, that they would unfold, and you go a little nutty, that's a tip-off that you're holding it as an intellectual exercise. And what's the other side of that? Well, it's a knowing. It's a core rock solid. You just know. How do you know that? Because I know. Well, who told you? 'Cause I did. I know. Because I'm the expert for me. Right? So that's a tip-off. So one example comes to mind for that it would be a whole big number of beings around the midterm elections, and the thought that well, I was going to go on one side, quote unquote, or you could go on either side of the equation. But on one side, let's say the red side, that there wouldn't be a blue wave, there was going to be a red wave, and every county, every grove, every hamlet, would all be washed red. And so every single House seat, every single Senate seat, every everything, right, would all just magically go red. And and when it didn't happen, or it was perception that didn't happen, a number of beings went a bit nutty, and then said, well, that's a fake, or this is not right, or they're just saying baloney, or stringing us along, or whatever it is, right? And that's another tip off, because it's if something wasn't going to the the way, the rollout, right? The unfolding, the storyline, right? The storyboarding, right? And you immediately go, well, it was and this, they story that we're doing, it was the Democrats, it was Q, it was this, it was that. So that's another tip off. If immediately you find someone or something or a combination thereof to flog about this, that's another tip off. That's an intellectual exercise, because you're knowing of something. You are not just entertaining, oh, it's a nice idea and I think that's cool, it makes sense and whatever, instead of a knowing of it. Would look at some things like that and go, well, clearly I didn't, my perspective was one thing and I didn't see all the nuances of it. So let me look a bit further. Let me see what other dots there are to connect. Let me see where else in this it go. So that's a second tip off. And well, there's lots. Another way of what's going on. So we'll take, quote unquote, the other side for a moment. And so the blue wave, so now we're on the blue side, the Democrat side, and the blue wave, didn't happen, but we're going to keep shouting that it did happen, and we haven't covered all the ballots yet, and we're finding all of these things, and and so there is the propensity and the need to kind of deflect, or to in a really kind of a clumsy, overdone way, to either cite as kind of your backup for something or whatever, in a way that you're forcing it. And so that's another tip off that it's an intellectual exercise, because when it's not purely an intellectual exercise, you have a knowing, and you could explain that, maybe you're not, but it doesn't really matter to you to explain it, because you're not selling anything, because this is for you and you're the expert for you, and you just feel it in every fiber of your being. You just have a sense of this. Do you understand it all? Probably not. But you know that this is so. And in fact, you're so knowing that to go away from that knowing, to walk in some other direction, to kind of abandon it, is painful. And whereas in the knowing and everybody else saying, well, hey, where's your source? Where's your expert, right? Kind of a thing. And you're not willing to say, well, I know. For me, I know. That can have some perceived discomfort and kind of feel lonely and painful there, but not at all to the extent if you want to go along, get along, go with the crowd over there. So there's, in theory, there's more around you, so it's not lonely, except it gets even lonelier when you do that. So that's a third tip off, that it's an intellectual exercise. And that it is an intellectual exercise. So how you're holding it, how you're dealing with it, how you're interfacing with it, how you're flowing that through your life. So the it can change depending on what you're focused on. Those are just some examples. Because when it's not an intellectual exercise, when, like I said, oft described as, I know it with every fiber of my being. Can I give you the normal linear ways? Well, yeah, I went to college and this and that and the other thing, where it's, has this alphabet soup after their name, or, these kinds of things. I just know it. And so I can see it. I can see it with my linear eyes, but I can see it, sense it, feel it by connecting different dots, by watching how things go. And this is a huge conversation, and we decided that we were just going to take a few nibbles at it in this conversation. Because one thing that's really voicing itself loud and clear for all beings, should they choose to take a moment to listen to the energetic frequency of it, is the realization, the opportunity to avail ourselves of the realization that what we are all doing is huge, and that's a pale, silly little word for what we're doing. So, and you could take the hugeness of that and kind of break it down to smaller and smaller chunks, so that any one chunk, could be like Mount Everest size, just the top of an iceberg size thing. And still it would be tiny compared to what everything is. So again, on this midterm example and the draining of the swamp, yeah.
Well, you were just saying that what we're doing here, and I would like to be very clear about what it is that we are doing, because you said it off camera, but we have not said why we actually even wanted to have this conversation, even though it's just a crumb or just a tiny little piece of this conversation, is because of what we are doing here. You said it off camera. We are building a new earth, a new way of being on earth. That is no small task. And every one of us are required. Our unique portion of who we are is required. And so I wanted to be very clear in regards to what it is we are doing here. And everyone, whether they believe it or not, know it or not, or whatever, is involved in this.
Yeah.
And I think that was actually the biggest portion of what you were talking about as to why we wanted, you in particular, BZ, wanted to have this conversation. Because there are a lot of us, sometimes myself included, in that are holding this as an intellectual exercise, and it's time to stop that now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of beings out here that keep saying, well, I wish this would happen, and come on, can't we do this or that or the other? And the one that we might be waiting for is you. Just so you know, whoever it is that's holding it into an intellectual exercise, because we are all required in this. This is not just a few of us who think we're doing it, gonna pull it. No, it's all of us. If you want to know why we're not there yet, take a look at what you're doing. Maybe that's part of the intellectual exercise for one. I'm just saying that's what I felt and what you were saying.
Yeah, and I'll be unequivocal in response to that yes, absolutely so. And even given that, which may seem like a Mount Everest size, tip of the iceberg, meaning the tip of the iceberg is just Mount Everest size, and since we all know how a tip of an iceberg works, that means that underneath is like, okay. So, yeah. So what you just described, yes, we're building a new worlds, and we're building new everything in all. So get the biggest ass magic marker you got in the darkest color you got, so that you can really see it shows up, and write the word all and underline it, and then plug the neon cord into the sign there and let it shine throughout the multiverses, because then you're starting to see a few more tips of the iceberg there. So with those tip-offs that we talked about, about it being an intellectual exercise, um, another kind of shorthand I use for that, if we're talking about Tennessee, this is not just a case in what we think of as, the court system. And this is not just an election in the midpoint of presidential elections. And, this is not just, so it actually isn't any of those things. It actually, because the whole illusion of the Department of Justice or a court case or politics or that there are two sides or anything, it's just fallacy. And actually, that's the beauty of it. That's how you know from an out there looking, and then you see if it with your resonance and discernment meter, that this is part of the steps and stages, part of the fabric, the woof and the weave of this tapestry, which will snap, and snap off all that is not of love, all that is not of the expansive nature, and that will just, dematerialize and float off. And then you have this fabric, which is the underlying fabric and structure and this brilliant, luminescent, energetic weave. That's, in the small example, the new earth. Because have you ever seen what's going on, in Florida and other places? I mean, really in your face, blatant stuff. And it's not just Republicans or Democrats, because, since they actually are all one, they've both been doing it just fine, and you can get also, but that's, we talked about, the last video up, about it's so damn funny, because it's like, I look around and think, how many other people are realizing that this is such theater and such characterization, such caricatures of, the election official or the this or the that the roles are, lest anyone still be not quite grokking what is going on here. It will be so parodied, so spoofed, so, right? You see where I'm going here, that you go, what is up with that? Kind of a thing.
Well, it's almost like it's not going to go away until we see it for what it is.
That's right.
And as you see it for what it is, it dissipates, it disappears, it evaporates before your eyes. And I can't get upset about anything going on in that arena anymore. As a matter of fact, I really, in just, and I didn't, like sit up and watch election results or anything like that, but, I paid attention. I knew what was happening. I saw things as they were unfolding. And for me, I just keep asking myself, I wonder what it's going to take, even for me, to see what I need to see so that I can get to the next step of my own personal advancement, the stuff that I want to do. And what I'm noticing for myself is that when I allow myself to really see what is, it's all there. Because even in this, we're just using this example of the unbinding and the unwinding of it all. It has to be seen and to be looked at. And if it hasn't, then it's still leading with that illusion, right? It's still an illusion. And so for me, I'm finding it kind of entertaining to watch how it unfolds, because it's rather telling to me. I don't know. It just seems to me like now it's more of a game of show and tell. And it's almost like you can interact with it too. Like, if I were to try and tell, somebody that they've been lied to their entire life, starting from birth, how would I do it? And I have been thinking about that. Like, how would I do that? Like, sort of in a healthy manner, because I've heard it's dangerous to wake a sleepwalker. And I'm going to agree with that because I've tried it before. And it's scary because they want to punch you. It's not a good thing, I don't think, anymore. I did it once. I just thought, well, if you knew what I knew, then, everything would change overnight. But it doesn't. It doesn't change that way because it's an inside job. And you have to go within yourself and sort it out. And I'm just getting to the point now where I'm being really patient with myself. And understanding that that's what I'm doing. I'm unwinding and unbinding everything that is not me. And I'm getting a good look at it and letting it go. See what I did? I just let it go. You don't have to hang on to it. It does not have to weigh you down. Sorry.
Well, you brought up a great point, that question of how, if you were going to do that, how would you do that? And that you've been lied to. Well, it's so much bigger than just even that statement, which, on first blush might seem, kind of big, but it's way beyond that. I mean, that's the story on page 26, what you just talked about, right? I mean, the headline above the fold is what's really going on. So, right. So all of these pieces have to go together. And one of the things I wonder about occasionally, or it's not wonder, it's well, certainly not wonder. I think it's wonderful. It's I kind of just noodle on, and that is of people saying, well, when are we going to have the mass arrests? And I'm thinking, what's so shiny about the mass arrests? What's like, because when we get the mass arrests, then I'll know that this is real, or that I'll know that things have changed, or that I'll know that I'll get what I want. Or, I mean, there's something in there. And hey, that might be a whole conversation we do a thing on. But the other day when I don't spend a lot of time on it, but occasionally it'll come through because I'll interface with something and I go, there it is again, and I'll noodle on it. And part of it is that came the other day is that in the propensity for us to, in some instances, continually ground ourselves in being small. So lock it in. Something may come along and we say, oh, maybe I'm not that small. No, lock it in. No, lock it. No, I'm small. Right. So I'm at under the foot of, right. And in our propensity to keep doing that, if we can hope, then those other beings who seem to be lofty and large and elite and, all those kind of names that are put on them, they'll be made to feel small too. So on the one hand, there's an appeal to that because they'll get their comeuppance and they're not above the law, and all these kind of euphemisms that we put on it. And what we don't realize, this is not the right word for it, but the oxymoron in that is that we keep putting, by our own proclivity and propensity, making ourselves small again. And now we want to share in that smallness, well, they're going to get their just desserts in the small size cup there. And so I think that's one of the shiny bits that are around the, because it's not justice. So, and we'll forget about the Department of Justice and all that kind of stuff for a moment. So, if you're looking at the bigger picture, or even just a nibble of the bigger picture, for those beings to see other beings, you know, the ones that you want arrested, to see other beings waking up, that's a big jail cell for them, you know, energetically. And it's hard to describe what I want to, what's flowing here. If we understood, if we, not the right word, if we can widen our aperture and focus and perspective out more, and to see that it isn't just a bunch of scoundrels known as the elite, the cabal, the deep state, you know, who have their fingers in different pies and that kind of stuff, and that it's more pervasive, more insidious, more orchestrated, more designed, more actually the whole false construct. So it's not just like you have the world and you have good people and then you got a bunch of, you know, like, I don't know, people think there's 1,000 or 2,000 that are just mean, slimy bastards, and, you know, we just arrest them all and we'll all be hunky-dory. You know, I mean, it's like rainbows and fluffiness and the whole 9 yards. And then I have to laugh, and then at the same time we've got people saying, well, you know, looking at people of my ilk that, well, I'm just rainbows and fluffy, you know, bunnies all the time. And I'm thinking, no, actually, I keep pointing out that we have all different colored and spiky rainbows and bunnies out there. And, and there's lots of, and by looking at it all, we can hold it all, and then we can wrap it all up. Okay, we're done with that. And then we create the new. So this is why, to me, it's just a tiny little nibble of a conversation, because, and I'll talk real linear for a minute, there's a whole hell of a lot more going on right now, and it's so much bigger than the swamp, than the this, than the that. And it's all interconnected. It's all intimately intertwined and connected. And to bring it, use this euphemism, to bring it all down, to unwind and unbind it all, to bring it to a close in all on this planet, which is all as well. It takes all of us. That'd be one important point. That it is all intimately connected, and when you pull a thread and unwind a thread here, it actually pulls and unwinds a thread over here, which seemingly, you know, well, that's Tennessee and this is the real thing with the swamp. No, actually the threads go all the way through. Oh, look at that. They go underground in Tennessee. Go look it up. Right? And so all of those things are interconnected. And then you've got something, you know, with the French, and you've got something with the Chinese. They're all connected because we're all one, and it's all of a piece. So to get back to kind of the container that these nibbles are in, and the juxtaposition is that when we hold it as an intellectual exercise, which actually negates the fact that we, each one of us, so you, each one of you, are the expert for yourself. And you give your power away. And you let whatever's going on out there be your rudder, your guide for how you feel, how you think, how you flow with the world, how you wait. I can't wait till, right? And it's a bit of work, but if you switched it around and you went for the knowing, so you looked at those tip-offs, and there's a whole pile more with that, and you go for the knowing, then you realize that you are so friggin' busy with really important, powerful things you're doing. You don't have any time to be sitting around waiting because you're too friggin' busy creating and doing and accomplishing and connecting with and co-creating all of this other stuff, in bringing it down, in revealing as the dust settles, and in building the new. A long time ago, I don't remember, I don't do time, so I don't remember, but a while ago, I did, there were two videos, and they were talking about three different things of the, bringing it to a close, and the dust is settling, and you can see that the light is shining, and then building the new. And maybe I'll do them in a new way, but that's never been more evident, right, this moment, of those three things all simultaneously unfolding. And if you're waiting, you're actually holding it up, which is causing you to wait on yourself, because you're waiting on the waiting, and you're doing the one who's holding up to cause waiting. Except that that's all bullshit, because you're too busy doing too many things and accomplishing them to even be waiting at all. Why do you think you're tired when you wake up in the morning after supposedly going to sleep all night? And hey, why do you see that everybody else seems to feel the same way?
That's real.
Yeah, that is good. I mean, I don't have knowledge that I'm doing things, but I just know that I am. As to that sleep issue, I just know that I am.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that everyone else.
It's sleep. I mean, let's face it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, you're right. It's a laughingly and lovingly and yet laughingly said term, sleep. So I know that we wanted to have this one to be a short one, and I know this is a huge conversation, and I have a feeling we'll revisit it more than once.
Well, we kind of already have. We can, I keep getting nudged to point this out, and just how big even just the tip of the iceberg is. And the last thing I'll say on this is that it's not all, to say that it's all good is laughable. To say that it's all perfect and perfectly done is woefully inaccurate. To say that it's something special and spectacular is, I mean, linear words don't do it justice, but what is transpiring? What is unfolding? What is being accomplished by each one of us, whether we know it or not, understand it or not, or really care about it or not, is unprecedented. Not just in this country or this planet, but in all. It's a big gosh darn deal. And it's really cosmically cool. How big, how delicious, how expansive, how yummy that it is.
That's, I finally comprehend what you meant and what you've always meant by saying those words, that the language really fails to accurately describe what all of this feels like as you know, as I've experienced it. It's there's a part of me that, I mean, I know that everyone has to get to this point where I am on their own. I get that. But because there doesn't seem to be any I don't know, accurate way so far that I've found to share the feeling, I mean, I've heard some describe things like bliss and, love and things like that. And even those words are just like very pale in comparison to all of, because I now really grasp a lot of those Facebook Lives that I was doing in Tennessee, what that was. And I don't know, I get frustrated sometimes because I really want, there's like Lisa was saying earlier, if you just knew what I know or feel what I feel, or you folks would get it. They would actively seek their divinity at all costs, because that's what it feels like within me. It's that good. It's that all encompassing. I don't even know how to express the feelings, the overall, the whole thing.
Yeah. What I'd like, I just got nudged to actually end this one in a slightly different way, and but to take a minute and a half or so to do a visualized metaphor to help use that as a place, a woefully inaccurate in itself placeholder for what we're talking about, how good it is. So you can have your eyes open or closed and just be comfortable and let everything from today go, and take a nice deep breath and let your being not only remember but travel to the time and place and space and the emotions and feelings of the most amazing sunset that you remember being a part of. So where you were, what was going on, how joyful you were, how reverent you were at looking at the colors, and just all those colors and the feeling of the colors, whether it was over the mountains or the land or the sea or the beach or wherever it was, and the beings that were around you, whether they were just kind of miles off, or there was a group of them, or someone particularly special, whatever it was, all of those components of that. And focus in when you're, because you're in this setting, there is no time, so you're actually experiencing this this moment as if for the first time, and all of the deliciousness of it. And just glance a little wider view and realize all of the varying shades and colors that are in what you're registering as just so exquisitely beautiful. And then feel there's a feeling to it. There's a feeling of how beautiful that is, not just a seeing of it. And there's a kind of a sensing and a music. You may not register it as, what you think of music on the radio, or something like that. But there's an auditory melody, harmony, music to it. So feel all of that, see all of that, sense all of that. Take a deep breath and breathe that all in. And then come back to yourself and look down, and on the table in front of you, wherever you are, I've put a tiny, thin, little charcoal gray, pale charcoal gray, fine line ball point like a felt pen. And now I want you to pick up that pen, and I want you to go and explain to someone the majesty, the grandeur, the magnificence, the sublimely deliciousness of that sunset that you just lived, breathed, and experienced with that thin little gray thing. So that's the metaphor for what language, the language such as it is that we have, to depict those things. And when you actually play with that for a moment, really play with it, you realize that bringing all of you and all of your abilities and all of your, how you really sense, perceive, and know a thing into being, that changes how you can language, quote unquote, something.
I like that, BZ.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah. That was excellent.
Yeah.
Well, in truth, I've said that a lot lately. All is metaphor. I see everything as metaphor now.
Mm-hmm.
Every single thing. There's nothing I don't see as metaphor anymore.
Yeah, and playing with the juxtaposition of odd metaphors together makes you see how much everything else can be explained with metaphor.
Well, like we said, this is really a much larger conversation, and this is just a little, to use BZ's terminology, a little nibble on the edge of this particular conversation. Did either one of you have anything you wanted to add to this portion of it? Or
No.
Okay, well, as usual, we will have all the usual things in all the usual places how to get in touch with everyone. Find BZ's blog over at the IUV, and both of Lisa's blogs are links to both of them are in the Show More section here, as well as how to get in touch with me, how to become a member of the Friends of Conscious Conversation Central Facebook page. And so until next time.